Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, and finally welcome to Title Update 2. Today we're talking about one of the new monsters, our returning friend Seregios. This video aims to highlight the Wilds version of the fight, the new equipment, and my thoughts on all of it. To unlock it, you'll need to at least have Hunter rank 31 plus and have completed the main mission of World Turned Upside Down, which was taking place during our initial journey into high rank following Gore's special story there, so more than likely you've done that long ago. Once you've achieved those two things, you'll be able to take on the new mission, Clear with a Chance of Sandstorm, and of course it's found in the Windward Plains. It actually starts in Kunafa village though, you can tell by the blue exclamation mark on the map. You speak with a distressed little girl that leads you into the region you're fighting the monster in the first place. Because of that, the fight starts in a very tight corridor though, so I do recommend you back out of there when you get started. Of course, there's also the tempered version in the game, as you can see one spawning soon from me. It is an 8-star difficulty version compared to the 6-star we'll face in the story. If we take a look at the tweet from the team about this, they warned us that two versions have different drop rates. So the regular Seregios will have lower drop rates of its rarest material unless you're hunting the tempered form. So outside of the increased challenge of the tempered version, there's a very clear reason to go for the tempered if you can. My understanding for that is you first need to have hunted the regular Seregios and have made it to Hunter rank 41 plus. How do you hunt Seregios after the first kill? Well, you can go for the optional quest, 1000 Shimmering Swords if you want, sending you against that 6-star normal version. However, Seregios can appear in two locales, the Windward Plains where we first meet him, but also they pick Wyvria as the second choice. Let's take a quick look at the monster field guide. You've got the breakable parts of the head, the wings and legs, both of them, and then of course you can cut off the tail. As it states in the description, it will be launching blade-like scales causing the bleeding we'll mention in a moment. It tells us that by breaking the head and tail, you can reduce the number of scales, so that's a very good idea. In regards to initial hit zone information, of course the head is going to be an optimal location for most of us. Interestingly, blunt damage is going to be particularly good against the neck, where you can really get at those scales though. With cutting damage, you'll be able to deal good damage at the tail compared to blunt, and both legs are going to be great targets, which is good because they'll lead to knockdowns. In regards to main element weaknesses, we have Thunder as the prime option. The head at 2-star, but more importantly, both the legs at 3-star. So it might even have particularly good hit zones for that. We'll have to see whenever we get the data mine. Otherwise, ice will be your second best option. As an interesting detail, it is relevantly resistant to paralysis compared to a lot of monsters. Vulnerable to sleep a lot more than that. So I'd recommend you run sleep on your palico weapon compared to paralysis in this case. Traps will work, as will flash pods, as we'll see. Okay, so let's talk about Seregios and his main mechanics, starting with the bleed, which is a big deal. He will cause bleeds using its talons and by firing scales at you from range. You should expect then the range attacks to combo into follow-up attacks if it lands them, and it will be constantly attacking you with those talon feet to cause bleed. Like I said, we can break the head and cut the tail to reduce the impact of this. In Wilds, you can see the bleed icon building at the top left above your health bar, the triple red lines. When it fills, that's when it activates, and you get this number to represent how long it's going to last. You'll feel it though as you roll around while bleeding, as you continuously take chunks of damage. To counter that then, you bring the meat wild jerky. Probably recommend you update an item loadout with anti-bleed as a concept for Seregios. It'll appear as an auto status remover option on your radial wheel, which is really nice, kind of like you might be offered a nullberry if you need one, but these will fully cleanse it instantly. As another tool though, you can stand still and crouch like always to cleanse bleeds, and in Title Update 2, they actually buffed this concept. It cleanses the bleed faster than it did before this update. Let's now cover some of the main attacks and combos we'll see, just some quick advice for that. First up, we have the two iconic attacks of Seregios. So we have the classic scale shots, which will trigger that bleed. The quick warning on these is that Seregios will often rattle its neck beforehand, sort of loosening the scales to then launch them. However, if he's hanging in the air at the time, he'll use his tail to whip them out at you instead. So yeah, break the head, cut the tail. Next we have the familiar leap slam combos, the unique movement of Seregios in the air. They're like these aerial bounce attacks, where he leaps back up into the air for a moment to then slam back down quickly with the talons. He'll do this just once at times, but then starts to throw these out in either 2x combos or even a triple if he's mad, so be ready for them to keep coming. Flash pods are as always very effective here, specifically when he's in the air, that'll, knock him down, but you need to be quick because it's only short bursts in the air. To avoid these, try to roll sideways just before he slams down to move out the way. Otherwise, you could guard them. But, with their consistent timing, I think they're going to be reliable and very satisfying to offset counter. Otherwise, perfect evades could be farmed here from this reliable pattern. Or, proper counterattacks like the sword counter here if you have them on your weapon. Lastly to mention here, there's one super slam that when performed will leave Seregios stuck in the ground with his talons. So if you see it coming by hanging in the air and then he spins, he winds up for this big slam. This means you could time an offset, counter, iframe, whatever. It's going to be a good DPS window if you're next to him after he lands. Last tip is don't forget that it's a bipedal monster standing with its weight on 2 legs. So if you target one leg and get a wound open quick, you can use that for a free knockdown and stop it in its tracks. This should be easy with this monster because as we saw, its legs are actually a great weak point. Next up then, let's take a look at the new equipment, both weapons and armor. The weapons themselves are visually fantastic. I always like that golden theme. But to get to the thing that, you're going to care about here, it's if they're good. And as you can see with the greatsword, we have 210 base attack, 25% base affinity, no element. We have the 3-2-1 slots, which is decent. And then kind of a weird sharpness state where yes, we have white sharpness, right? But it's like this most minuscule amount. That is because of the equipment skill that's tied to the weapon like we thought it would be. Blade, scale, honing. As it states, it says narrowly evading a monster's attack while your weapon is drawn grants special sharpness. This is a familiar concept for Seregios and a skill. The fact that it's found on the weapon was something we did wonder would happen. Now, initially, the weapon would hint towards the higher end of a monster weapon, but not competitive with Artian. But with the blade scale honing and the potential of that, it could be better than we think. It provides this special sharpness bar that gives the sharpness bar new visuals. And right now, the potential effects of this aren't exactly clear enough. Like, what does the special sharpness actually specifically give you? We want to do some proper testing beyond this first impressions look before we tell you anything concrete. Ultimately, it has that chance to do something with the meta, but I think what's more likely is it might just compete with the shia weapons. But with some detailed testing, we're going to tell you more when we know more, so we're back with that very soon. It's important to note that the ranged weapons, in specific the bow here, has a different equipment skill though, blade scale loading. Narrowly evading a monster's attack while your weapon is drawn grants special loaded ammo or applied coatings. So with the bow in particular, it auto-equips these new coatings according to Josh and his experience with it, which sounds interesting. There's special blade scale coatings that seem to deal solid damage. So there's actually some particular potency and potential here on the bow. Next up then, we have the armor and the new visuals that we have for Wilds, which as always with Wilds is quite exciting because we have the masculine and feminine set and you can mix and match between them for the first time. Overall, the set does have some serious potential with the skills though. It's obviously very focused on Adrenaline Rush and Agitator, which are both valuable skills. Adrenaline Rush is an interesting one because you can just get one level of it and get 10 raw really reliably for those that it really works for. Investing harder into it is a bit harder to justify because you're giving up other things, obviously. But you do have something pretty good on the gloves, where you have the 2 decoration slots, sure, but then you've got 2 levels of Adrenaline Rush and 1 evade extender all in one piece. Sadly, the Agitator levels are only 1 level on the pieces that it's actually on. But you do get some counter-strike here, which is obviously another great skill. So we're somewhat hopeful for the adrenaline potential for those that it's relevant for, like bow and dual blades. But then of course we have the set bonus. We have the familiar scaling prowess for Master Mounter, a 3-piece. But more importantly, we have Seregios' tenacity, also known as Razor's Edge, level 1 and 2. Level 1 says that it extends the duration of Adrenaline Rush. If you trigger it again while the skill is currently active, it'll extend the duration. So again, for bow and dual blades, they've got these perfect dodges and are super good at keeping Adrenaline Rush going anyway. This is going to make it kind of permanent. Meanwhile, the second level of it is a bit more uncertain. If triggered again while the skill is active, it'll further increase your attack, so it's going to give you some raw. The context of this is important. How much raw does it provide in one thing, right? But is it every dodge in the chain, or is it just once? We're going to need to do some farming to get all of this unlocked and test it properly, but I think this is a positive start, something to investigate with some good hope. So overall for the set, visually awesome, and both the weapons and armor need some investigation with potential behind them. I think that's a win. But yeah, there you have it. That's my first impressions look at Seregios. We have the tempered version to consider now, not to mention Lagiacrus as well, so lots to test and be underway with. Let me know what you guys think about the new year and the fight itself. But of course, we'll be back with lots of videos covering all things Title Update 2. So until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice. to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.